Grief Inspired, and it's a Sunday afternoon. And I've been doing some thinking, and I had a good week this week, and I made myself a cup of tea, and I thought I would sit with you and talk about, what do you do? What do you do when someone dies? Now, my friends, they know to call me when someone dies. But let's say, for example, you don't know me, or you've just found me here. What do you do? What do you do when you find out that somebody that you love dies? It's tragic. It's terrible. If you found out suddenly, what do you do then? If you have known that they were going to die, but maybe didn't realize that they were going to die right now, or today, or yesterday, well, then it's like another thing. So what do you do? I get that question a lot. I get a question that people call, somebody that they love has died. I don't know what to do. I get very choked up and sentimental when I realize that people have found me, because I feel so good. I feel so good about that, because I know that I can help. Because here's the thing that I do know: whether you find out suddenly that somebody that you loved has died, or if maybe you knew someone was dying and maybe it happened a little more suddenly than you expected, or you might just be sad because you knew they were going to die and they did die, and now here you are. What do you do? And so I think the first thing is you need to take a deep breath, because you're going to have to get through all of the planning and all of the things that have to happen when death strikes. What does that mean? It means you have to take a beat, and you have to take a deep breath, and you have to realize that you're going to find a way to get through this. When people offer to help you, you accept their help. If someone offers to help you write the obituary, let them help you. If someone offers to help you decide on a funeral home, let them help you. Let them give you recommendations. If somebody offers to help coordinate the meal that has to happen after the funeral, let them help you. This is the time to let the people that love you come around you, swoop in, and help. There isn't anything that is that earth-shattering that if you don't do it the minute that you think of it, that anything's going to go wrong. So give yourself a minute. And you have to get through the funeral, dealing with all of the people, deciding where donations are going to go, or do you want plants, or do you want flowers, which I never liked flowers because flowers just die. It just seems like it brings more death. I still to this day don't really care for peace lilies. I don't like the white, the white lilies. I remember having them in my living room on my table, and then they just kind of like all falled and they just died and they made a mess. And then I had to clean those up, and I'm like, this is terrible. So you have to get through that first week and a half, however long it is, before the grief really starts to kick in. You're usually numb during that period. That's the numb phase. They say denial. There can be shock. It can be numbness. Your brain does that to you on purpose. It's a good thing early on, when you're like, I can't believe this has happened, when it doesn't seem real, when it feels surreal. That's okay. I don't remember a lot about my son's funeral. I have glimpses. You just don't remember a lot, because you're literally just trying to survive and hang on and get through the day. If you feel like crying, you cry. If you're not crying, That's okay too, because that usually means that you're just, the loss is so deep that you can't even recognize it. You will cry. Don't think that you won't cry, because you will. It will come in time. Grief has to unfold for you. And then once things kind of calm down, then what you need to do is you need to find a way to grieve. And that's where I come in. I usually come in at some point between 3 and 6 months for people, because usually that's where things start to get really, really hard. It's when people start to forget that you've lost someone. People tend to go back to their usual selves, to their lives. They stop worrying about you so much. They stop bringing the food. They stop checking in. They kind of start to disappear. I remember that experience, of people just sort of disappearing, and yet the loss was so vivid and so real for me, and very much on the top of my mind every second of every day. And I think that that happens. But other people start to go back to their lives. And the thing about grief is that life keeps going, the world keeps spinning, things keep happening. And a lot of times you're just stuck there watching it go by and wondering what is next. So many people come to me and they say, I don't know what's next. I don't know how to live without my loved one. And I get that. You have to learn and you have to figure that out. And that's what grieving is. There's work that's involved in grief. I believe strongly that the first thing that you should do, and when you start to grieve, once you get to that 3, 6, 9 month, wherever you happen to be, when you're still in the first year for a lot of people is a little bit of a blur. Usually when you look back on it, I have a lot of people that say, like, I don't really remember the first year. I don't remember the first year of my loss. But the first thing that you want to do is get with other people. You want to make sure that you can get into a space, no matter where it is, with people who understand what you're going through, who have shared a similar type of loss. Other people who have lost a child, a spouse, a parent. Other people who are devastated. These people could be in my grief groups. It could be in a different support group. It could be at your church. It could be online. I like mine best, of course. But you need to sit with people who understand what you're going through, because what you will find is that the people around you don't really get it. It's big. People don't like to talk about death. They don't like to talk about grief. They just want you to be better. And so sometimes they kind of try to hurry you along, and they try to tell you, like, it's been 3 months. Shouldn't you be better by now? We can talk about the Christian platitudes and the things that people say that aren't so helpful, because that all happens early on too. There's things I wrote down here, right? These are the big ones. God has a plan. Do you really want to hear that God has a plan when you've just learned that you've lost your loved one? Eventually, maybe 2, 3, 4 years out, you might start seeing a plan start to formulate, but certainly not early on. You start to learn who you are. What are the other ones? God won't give you more than you can handle. That's a good one. Ugh. Please don't say that to anyone ever. Because that's not what we want to hear, is it? No, this is not something that we want to handle. It's not something we even want to be dealing with at all. I lost a child, as many of you know, right? And God needed an angel in heaven, so he took your son. Barf. That made me so angry. It's well-intentioned. They mean well. They just don't get it because they don't see things from your point of view. If it's somebody elderly or someone who is sick, They're in a better place now. And you think to yourself, great. Yeah, maybe they are in a better place, but they're not here with me. And that's the problem, because I want them still here with me. So if you can get with people who understand what you're going through, that's going to help. It's definitely going to help, because those people aren't going to say things that aren't helpful. People who understand will say, sucks, doesn't it? I'm with you. We're here to support you. We got to share stories. We got to talk about our people. I still love talking about Jackson. I don't get to do it as often as I like. Sometimes I get to talk about him here with you guys, and that's kind of cool. But yeah, we want to talk about our people. Start cataloging all the things that you remember. Put them in a book, put them in a journal, write them down, type them out on your computer. Keep them for yourself. I used to worry early on that I was just going to forget. I was going to forget all this stuff. So I did write it down. I have it written down. I went back recently and read it a little bit. It's kind of sad. The things I wrote are sad. But there were some really happy memories too. And so catalog the things that you want to remember, right? You want to remember the happy times. You want to remember the times that you guys did things together and the reason why you're grieving, right? I spoke at my church this week, right? And I said, we grieve deeply because we love deeply. And sometimes we forget that. Grief has everything to do with the love that you have for the person that you lost. So it's not something that you just get over, move on from, do quickly. If it were quick, that means that you didn't love them. And if you didn't love them, you wouldn't be here looking for videos. So if you're here and you're watching, I know you loved your person or persons. Let's talk about what shows up. You might be feeling guilty. Are you guilty you said something you shouldn't have said before they died? Did you do something that you wish you hadn't done? Or maybe there was something you wish you did do and you didn't get around doing it because you put it off. There's so much for us to be guilty about. I don't know anybody who doesn't have some sort of guilt after losing someone they love. It's part of the process. That's where education comes in. Education is the third thing that you need. So the first one was sitting with people who get it. The second one was being able to share and talk about your person. The third one is education. You got to know that the rumination that you're experiencing, rumination is that thing that keeps you up at night when you replay the scenarios of their death over and over again, or the last thing that you said to them over and over again, or the things that you're going to miss now over and over again, and you replay them. We ruminate because we want to understand if there was a different alternative. Could something have been done, or could you have done something that would make the outcome of your loss different? Rumination is part of the process. You have to go through it. Depression. Yep. That will show up at some point if you're not already there. Yes, it's depressing. Grief is depressing. Loss, losing the people that you love, super sad, a lot of depression. Is it clinical depression? No. It's being sad. It's being really, really, really sad. You're supposed to be. You'll likely have trouble eating. You'll either not eat enough or maybe eat too much. I was on the eat too much side of things because I kept trying to find some comfort with food. Your sleep patterns are going to be all disrupted. That happens too. You're not supposed to be sleeping. Your body doesn't know what's happening. Your brain is trying to figure out how did your world end up so completely different? There may be some anger that shows up there. It shows up for most people. I've had some people who aren't angry, or they say they're not angry. Usually it turns into shame, regret, disdain for themselves. They beat themselves up, and instead of being angry at God or the world or the situation, they turn the anger inward, and it shows up as shame, guilt, blame, regret. They spend a lot of time beating themselves up. Grief is hard. Going through grief is a really hard process that takes time. It's usually super lonely. That's why if you get with people who get it, that helps. When you start to wonder whether you're going to forget about them, or you think about them all the time, but you have nowhere or no one to tell about them, or maybe you do have some people and you're like, I got to the point where I'm like, I have 2 sisters who are wonderful in helping me through my loss, but I got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to dump on them anymore. It just doesn't seem fair. It just doesn't seem right. Like, I just don't want to do that to them. I mean, I still had the need to talk about it, but I felt bad for putting so much on other people. And so the thing about grief support is that's what it's for. And you can come to a group and you could sit with us and you can talk about your loved one all of the time. And there are lots of people who are there who are willing to listen, because you know why? Because they were in your same scenario. They want to talk about their loved one too. So what do? We get together and we talk about our loved ones. And I say, tell me all the great things about them. I want to know who they were. I want to know who they were. I want to know why you love them so much. I want to know all of their quirks. I love that I know all that stuff about the people that my clients have lost. I want to know what they looked like. I want to know where you guys went on vacation. When you go on vacation, I wanted to know the things that you were aspiring to do that maybe you didn't get to do. Where would you go? What were you planning? And one of the hardest things is saying, like, how am I going to live without this person? I was sharing about my loss, right? And I held my son until he passed away. We removed life support and I held him. And that literally was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. But what I told the people that I was speaking to at church, what I realized was that the hardest thing was not losing him. The hardest thing was learning how to live without him and figuring out how to go on and how to move forward, because my life was so dramatically different. The things that I thought were important were no longer important to me. I didn't have a purpose or meaning anymore, because everything, the meaning and everything was like literally like sucked out of life. And then there's fear, panic, anxiety. It's all part of grief. And it shows up at different time for different people. And it's what we all have to experience as part of the grief process. And that's what makes it so hard. But it doesn't have to be something that's so taboo. I don't understand. For me, I talk about grief all the time. I talk about death all the time. Tell me what happened. I want to know. Tell me who your person was. What happened? What were they like before they died? What were your dreams? What were your hopes? Those are the things that we need to be talking about. And then we start to say, okay, well, what's our life going to be like now? Because there is a choice. When someone you love dies, you have to decide, do I want to keep going? And if I do, what does that look like? Because there is a delineation in time. There is your life before your loss, and then there is your life after. And what I say is, like, let's move forward. Let's learn how to live with loss. Let's learn how to carry your grief. Let's learn what it means, how it shows up. Can you honor your grief and what you're going through because you love the person so much? We grieve deeply because we love deeply. Let's honor that. Let's honor the love that's there, even when it's difficult. And then you have all these blank pages ahead of you. What's life going to look like? You lose your spouse. I don't know what that looks like. I was a mother. I lost a child. I don't know what does my life look like? I knew I wanted to try to have another baby. But that was it. That was literally it. I was 42. I was like, that's what I have to do because I am a mother. And I was a mother without a child. Life looks dramatically different. You lose a sibling, you lose somebody, anybody that you're really close to. And to imagine a world without them in it, it's hard. And so what you do is you start to create a world that does have them in it, even if you're not physically with you. You carry them with you. And you start doing things that are intentional. We spend a lot of time in my group saying, well, what would your loved one tell you to do? What would they want for you? Would they want you to sit here and beat yourself up for years and just live the rest of your life miserable? Does that honor them? I don't think so. You honor them and you honor the love that you had for them by figuring out how to move forward and how to keep going. And the thing about grief is that it is about being inspired. That's why I call it grief inspired, is being inspired to find some semblance of joy for yourself. And what does that look like? And it's finding things slowly, how to be grateful. How can you be grateful for the moments you did have with them? I had my son 42 days. I'm grateful for that because I think of the alternative. Would I ever want a world where he wasn't ever in it? Absolutely not. He's made me who I am. The people that we've loved and then lost have impacted us deeply. That impact is to be honored and to be cherished. And that the life that you live from here on moving forward is something to cherish. It's something, make it inspiring. Do it to honor them. What does that look like for you? Spend time today thinking about that. What do I put in my next chapters? That is the big question. It's a massive question. What do I put in my future? And when I put something in my future, does it have meaning? Like real meaning. What's the purpose? Who are the people that are still in your life that you can choose to love better? Who are the people that you spend time with that you're like, why do I have this person in my life? You can love that person from a distance. That's what we call it. I learned that somewhere. Toxic people have no place in your life because the life that you have that is still here, that you are living, that you can choose to live for them because they can't. Man, it needs to be a good one. It needs to be on purpose. And it needs to be meaningful. And we have a mantra here that says the answers to our life are within us. I say my answers to my life are within me. That's the mantra. And so it's about taking time to look within and figure that out. What are the answers that I need to find? And I think that's where God comes in. Asking those things. God, a higher power, whoever it is. Finding that meaning. And then I like to have the meaning, and I like putting it in action and saying, now that you know this, now that you know what loss is like, now that you've survived it, because you will survive it. How do I know that? Because other people have survived loss, just like yours. There's only a certain number of things that happen. Yes, the scenarios can be different, but there's a lot of similarities. And if other people have survived a loss, you can too. Other people have found hope, have found meaning. That means you can too. And I won't stop telling people that until I stop, which will also happen. Your life will not be forever. So what are you going to do with the life that you do have? That's the thing that I think sometimes we forget, and we're so busy and we're so fast in this world that we don't take time to slow down and say, what is the thing that's important? Where is the meaning? How do I want to spend my time? Who do I want to be with? What are the things that I want to do? Right? Dana in our group, she's found an awareness that's so profound. And she says, like, I don't want to pay for stuff anymore. And I love that because it really resonates. She's like, I want to pay for experiences. I want to go and do things with my grandson. I want to do things with my daughter. I want to do things for me. I want to do things for my son. It's taught me to do that. But you have to grieve, and you have to educate yourself on grief and the grief process. You need to get with other people who know what you're going through. You need to share and talk about your loved one or loved ones or all the people. If you've lost more than one person in your life over time, those losses pile up. And it takes time to figure this stuff out. It's not like it suddenly just like pops in your head and you're like, oh, now I know. It's not like I woke up the day after Jack died and I'm like, yes, I want to be a grief coach and I want to talk about grief and death and loss all day long. People think I'm nuts. Why would you want to do that? But the reason why I want to do it, and the reason why I want to sit and be with people in their tears, this beautiful, wonderful girl found me at church today and she lost her mother. And to see her grief start to come out, tears were streaming down her face, and they were beautiful tears. And what I saw was beauty in that, beauty in her pain. Because behind all of that pain is the love that she feels for her mother. And to me, that's beautiful. To have somebody that you hurt so much about, that you love so much that it hurts as much as it does. Wow. From the vantage point I'm in, that is a massive gift. You might not see that, and I get that. And grief is an education. That's the third thing. Did I get to the third thing? You need to learn about your grief. You have to get to the education. You have to understand it. First of all, what is grief? How is it normal? What is the grief process? What is going to show up for me? And then how does it show up specifically for you? That's another education that you need, because it's going to show up differently for you. Some people are really angry. Some people are really guilty. Some people are just really sad. If you watch that movie, the Disney movie, Inside Out, with the emotions, it's really good because they talk about all of the emotions and how they show up. We need to educate ourselves on what are those emotions and what are we actually feeling? What are we really going through? Is it anger or are we upset about something else? Is there an underlying emotion there? A lot of people use guilt to cover up the reality of the loss. Because as long as they stay beating themselves up, they don't really have to focus on the fact that their loved one is really, really gone. It's tragic, but it happens all of the time. And it takes people different amounts of time to get to these awarenesses, to these realizations, to say, why did this happen? Why did it happen to me? Why is my loved one not here? And how do I come to accept that? How do I create a future without them when I don't want to? It's all heavy stuff, but the thing that I love about it most is that there's so much meaning there. All of the keys to life live within grief. You will find out about yourself, you'll find out about your life, and you'll create something that's beautiful when you get through some of your grief from the really hard stuff. You're going to grieve. I used to think you could 100% get over your grief. I don't really think that anymore. I think you can come to terms with it and you can carry it and you can hold it and you can be okay with it in your grief. You can be okay to experience the pain of your loss. And then you start to see the beauty in it. I'm so glad that I can grieve Jackson. And that when I think of leaving the hospital without him, because that was a pivotal moment for me, there was no tears when I was holding Jackson as he died. There were no tears when I gave him to the nurse. As I walked out of the hospital stunned, there were no tears until I got out of the hospital. That's when the tears hit. That's when the grief really struck. When I realized that he actually was gone and that I wasn't ever going to see him again. But I look at it today and that grief is beautiful because of who he was to me and how he's in my heart. That's not ever going anywhere. It doesn't magically disappear. Your love never disappears. The pain you can let go of. The pain will go. And I had trouble with that. I held on to the pain because you get really comfortable. You get really familiar with being sad and being depressed. I don't want that for you guys. I did that. If you get moving in grief, if you start to understand it and educate yourself and start processing, you don't get stuck. You're not so comfortable in nothing but the pain because there's other things there. And it helps you move forward. So I don't want that for you guys. I was there. It took me a long time to realize and have the awareness for myself, even though, maybe someone told me. Back when I was grieving, no one told me anything. I had to figure it all out on myself. You guys have me and everybody else that's in the grief groups that helps you. But I learned that I could lose and let go of the pain and know that my son Jackson was still going to be there. The love I had for him, all of the memories, all of the things. I was deeply, deeply touched by him. He was my child. That doesn't just vanish. And I only had him for 42 days. For you guys who have been married for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, yeah, it's going to take a minute to get over. Why are you beating yourself up about it? Why are you angry that you're anxious? Of course you are. It's terrifying to live alone when you've been living with somebody, having somebody sleep in the bed next to you for all of those years, and then suddenly the bed's empty. Every time you leave the house and you come home, there's no one there anymore. It's terrifying. It's supposed to be. Of course it is. So why are we trying to rush acknowledging that, and then being angry at ourselves because we should be better by now. I didn't mean for this to go on for so long, but it needs to be said. So what do you do when you lose someone that you love? You get through the funeral and all of the things that you have to do that are the tactical things. I need to write an obituary. I need to organize the pictures. I need to make sure that the funeral is, decide what's going to be in the funeral. I need to make sure I notify everybody. I make sure people can come. I need a place to hold it. I need a place to have, do I have a meal? Do I not have a meal? Do we have a celebration of life? Do we not have a celebration of life? All of that is like your head just spins for that first week. And somehow you get through it, and somehow you let the people help you, and like it all happens and it's fine. And then you can exhale. And then you can take as long as you want. And you want to have another 1-year anniversary celebration of their life. You want to release balloons or flowers into the air or have a party. You can do all of that. You don't have to do it right away. You can do it 1 year. You can do it 2 years. You can do it 5 years. You can literally do it on their birthday, on their anniversary. And you have to be able to get through the whole first year of all of the losses. And that first year is going to be, it's going to be rough. And then the second year might be kind of rough too, because sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. But you get with people who get it. You share stories with the person that you lost. And you get educated. And you educate yourself. And in my case, you get a dog. I got a doggy. Dogs are good. They listen. Dogs are good listeners. I don't know if you heard that. He just sighed. Like, stop talking about me. He's a funny dog, this one. Yeah. You're going to be okay. You can do this. Hang out with me. Hang out with us in the school community. Get with us. Do the work. Grieve, because that's what you're supposed to do. But here's the thing. Grieve so that you can live. Because your loss and your grief has everything to do with your life and the life that you still have. It's your job to live it. Live it for them. Live it for you. But live it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope that this helped. If you need support, reach out to me. If something I've said has helped you, drop a comment below so that other people know, so that other people can share from your awarenesses. I want to help. I want to be here for you. I want to teach you how to care for yourself, be gentle on yourself, choose what's next. Like, let's have a brainstorming session. I don't know. What are we going to do? I don't know what's going to be in my future. Do you? Let's make it up. What? If you could have it, what would you want? Sometimes what you do want, you can figure out by going, well, I know I don't want that. Sometimes that's where it starts. But if you can get with other people and brainstorm and think through it, it gets a little bit easier. Grief is hard. It can get a little bit easier. You can move forward. You can learn how to live with your loss. And that's what we do here at Grief Inspired. And so that one day, your grief will inspire you to do something really miraculous and meaningful and purposeful. I don't know what that is for you. You might not know either. But together we can find it. And I want to do that with you. So thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your day. Let me know how I can help. That's why I'm here. Bye.